So what do we talk about on Sunday?
You talked about, we're the problem.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the review preview. I don't know if you caught the background vocals, but Shane was literally singing.
It's gonna be in there.
You can fade you in.
I've said I was gonna do it, like, for the longest time. I'm gonna sing with it.
I know, and Suzanne last week, when she didn't know that we were recording this, she called in and she said, because we remember we did it last minute, we didn't have the opportunity to put the track in, and she said we should just sing it. And so lo and behold,
yeah,
Shane Hamstra is singing the background, the BVGs.
Yeah.
No, background. Yeah, BGVs. That's
the
it.
Background vocal.
Yeah.
Things. Oh, I forgot this is loud now.
So Shane is eating Smarties, and this is the first time we've done this, a video podcast with all three of us.
Yeah.
So we got Shane and we got Danny over there.
Hola, hola.
So there we go.
On a skateboard. Well, sorry, a longboard.
I'm naturally this tall, actually.
That's like someone like playing disc golf, calling it a frisbee.
Yeah.
You're just like, you don't do that.
That's offensive.
So here's the thing. Me and Danny had something happen simultaneously in our lives today.
You're not in our group. I'm just saying.
You're not. If you can look close on the video, because now it's a video podcast, we have the same shirt on.
We've been talking about this.
I know.
It's going to happen.
We knew
one of these days.
We knew it would happen, and lo and behold, it's today.
It's today. The chance of that happening.
What are the chances that the people get to witness this?
1 in 1,024.
Yeah.
Speaking of,
yeah.
Right, yeah, that was a veiled reference to what happened in Equipping Hour, where you almost lost $20.
I almost lost $20. Initially when I did the example, I was like, I'm gonna do 100 because there's no way anyone's gonna get there, and I'm glad. And then I looked at my wallet, I'm like, well, I don't have $100, but I have 20 on me, and so I'm like, just in case, right?
And then you didn't even have your wallet with you.
I know.
But then you invited someone from the crowd to come help out,
right?
And lo and behold, he flipped.
It was my lucky peso, and
he flipped 8 in a row, man.
It was crazy, crazy. I couldn't believe it. So I tried that at home, and the most I got was 7, and I'm like, that was know.
Your kids almost weren't able to go to college.
We almost weren't able to go to McDonald's after church. Yeah. That's what happened.
I was secretly hoping. I was like, man, I might. We might have $20 more in our household, right? Because the contestant was Elijah. Yeah,
that's so funny.
Well, good. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the Review Preview Podcast. We are going to be reviewing what we had happen on our campus last Sunday, and then preview. So we'd already referenced Equipping Hour, but Danny, you've been doing a series in Christian apologetics. Are you eating more Smarties?
Yeah, I can't not finish them.
I can hear the crinkling. So you did apologetics. So you kind of finished up your teaching series, then you're going to hand the baton off to Shane for a couple weeks here. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that you discovered in science.
Yeah, so there is so much that you can look at with like scientific apologetics, because there's, whether it's the creation of the universe, or whether it's something like our DNA, or the formation of how do we come to be, all these things that they talk about, they're fingerprints that show that God has been working in this. And so it's been really cool for me just to go through some of that stuff, and just a refresher for me. It's been very encouraging just to remember in the middle of whatever may be going on in our lives, that we do have a God that is so incredibly powerful and wise beyond our understanding, that can do these things. So it's pretty cool.
When you finished that video of baby Olivia, like growing in the womb, I just when that finished, I was just like, my mouth was just open.
It's so cool.
Wow.
Yeah. One of the things that I think it was like week 12, it's like the baby can put their fingers together, and it's like those little details you don't think about. Yeah. But it's so cool because it's like we're made in the image of God, and so some of these characteristics that we have that you see in the womb, it's just like, it's so cool just to visualize. So, anyways,
there's. We talked about this a little bit a couple days ago. There's so much to unpack, and there was so much content covered on Sunday.
It's like
that. It's just like,
here's the information.
Right? Yeah. But I think what I got from that is more than just learning all the detailed nuances of an argument and stuff like that. Is the thought that kept circling around my mind was the verse in Job that says, these are just the fringes of the outer workings of who our God is. It's like, so we. even if we were able to understand all these things, there'd still be an element where we haven't become exhaustive in our knowledge. God is still God.
Not even close.
Yeah. And just the development of what we've been able to learn, even just in the last 50 years is amazing. But there's still so much more.
Right. So
just the fringes.
Even just taking an example of like our galaxy, like 100 years ago, it was debated, are we the only galaxy in the universe?
Yeah.
And now fast forward now, and it's like, well, actually there's like, so many galaxies in the universe, and so anyways, just some but those are things that are discovered by us, and so it's cool just to get glimpses into the mind of God. So
cool.
Yeah, and shameless plug, we started recording equipping hours and putting those on YouTube and on the website. So if you haven't seen Danny's class yet, you have no excuse.
Yeah, it's on there. You can get on there and check it out.
Yeah.
So, and then during the worship time, we entered into the sanctuary and engaged in musical worship and did James chapter 4.
Yeah.
So
to the sermon.
It was a pretty intense passage because kind of you open it up with James 4:1 where it says this massive rhetorical question, like what causes quarrels and fights among you? It's like, well, wouldn't we want to have the answer to that question?
Right.
But unfortunately the answer to that question is the fact that we are the source of the relational strife that we have. James is going to say, hey, it's your problem or the desires that you have. And so that kind of hits us all square in the face a little bit right from the get-go of chapter 4. Something
I thought of with that is you always hear stories of like, there's someone like visiting the church the first time and they like hear like a sermon and they go up to the pastor afterward and they're like, Pastor, like, did you talk to my wife or did you talk to my husband when you wrote this?
Yeah.
And I was like, I think that's one of those passages where we all get hit in a certain way, like somewhere along the way, James gets us.
Yeah.
And it's like, have you been following me around this week? Like,
I think you made a comment earlier this week. It was funny. It's like, I'm excited to be done with James so I can go back to living my life, just kind of jokingly, because there's so much in James that is just, it's very like applicable to our everyday lives. It's stuff that we all wrestle with. So.
And that's the thing is, one of the beautiful things about the passage as I was studying it last week and preparing to present it, right, is there's so much heaviness at the beginning of the passage because it's basically saying, we have these presenting problems in our life where do you have quarrels, do you have fights, do you murder? And we're like, well, I don't really murder, but then we had to go back and remember what Jesus taught on the Sermon on the Mount, where if you insult somebody or if you call them a fool, basically a moron is what the word is, moros, then you've insulted that person, you've called them a fool, you've murdered them in your heart. So like we're all guilty of that, right? So we're all complicit in this, but these are all just the presenting problems because the underlying problem, what James is going to say is that we have passions that are ruling us instead of us ruling over them. So when you get to verse 4, like he like doesn't release the pressure. He calls us adulteresses. He says, you adulterers. Yeah. I'm like, wait a minute. I thought I was just quarreling and fighting, maybe murdering in my heart, but now you're calling me an adulterer? What are you talking about? And basically what James is saying, he's likening us to the Old Testament people who were offering themselves to off-limit suitors for their own sexual pleasures. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's what we're doing with God. We're cheating on God. We've allowed these desires that we have that might be legitimate, might be good and honorable, but when they start to control us, they've essentially become our functional gods. They've become idols, and we start to worship them. Yeah. And so it's really sad because the progression of an idol is, we can have these desires, and those desires turn into demands. And once we have these expectations and demands, then we put ourselves in the place of God, and we start judging people if they don't meet our demands. And then idols always require some sort of sacrifice. And so we start to punish people because you're standing in the way of what I want and you're just a means to my end. And it's just nasty. And this is written to church folk. Like this is written to the church. This is written to the brothers, right? So this relational strife happens in our life, in the church and in our Christian families. And so we have to be on the lookout for that.
I feel like James is reaching down to the root problem, or digging down to the root problem.
Yeah.
Like, we see this fruit, these things that are happening that are obvious on the outside, but like, what's actually causing this? And he's reaching down like to the idolatry that's in our hearts.
Yeah.
That's causing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so here's the thing. There's a beautiful way that the teaching passage is actually verses 1 through 12, but there was too much to get through, so I just kind of broke it up into one sermon. I'm actually going to break it up into 3, just because I'm always long-winded. But verse 6, there's something sandwiched in the middle that's just beautiful, because verse 6 begins with this: but God gives more grace.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, so that's the center point of the passage, I think, is that even after regeneration, we're still dependent upon God's grace.
Yeah.
And that's why the hymn writer writes, John Newton, His grace has brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. So it's not just dependent on our own self-efforts. We're still completely dependent upon God to give us grace so that we can walk away from these idols that we've set up and erected in our lives. So
Yep.
I wonder if it, like, I don't know. Obviously, James was familiar with like the Hebrew scriptures and with the Psalms. And I wonder if he intentionally kind of wrote that almost like a psalm does, where it starts off and the main point of it's actually in the middle, and then it's like a build up to that point and then a response from that point.
I don't know. I mean, it's clear. I think it's clear, and I didn't reference this, but even that when you get into verse 6, someone's getting buzzed right there. In verse 6, there's a quotation that's kind of a loose quotation from Proverbs chapter 3, verse 34. So where it says God exalts, or God opposes the proud, but exalts the humble, or something like that. So I know that obviously he's familiar with the Old Testament scriptures, and I think Peter references it as well in 1 Peter 5. But anyway, so these guys were familiar with the Old Testament and what it taught.
Yeah, and they definitely were.
So then this week is a continuation of the teaching of the passage. So we're going to look at verses 6 through 12, and we're going to talk about how we're going to discover the pathway to really pleasing the Lord is taking the pathway of what I say. I'm still working on it, but humble dependence and submissive repentance. So we're going to look at verses 6 and 10 this week, talking about what does it mean to be humble before the Lord and resist the devil. Sadly, so often we reverse that, and we don't submit to the Lord and resist the devil. We actually submit to the devil and resist the Lord. Right. It's like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about humility, and then next week we're going to talk about what does real repentance look like, because like it or not, guys, there's 11 imperative verbs in 5 verses where it's like, okay, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this 11 times over. It's like, whoa, how am I going to do that? And once again, but God gives us more grace, so that we have to be centered around that. Otherwise, we're just going to be in way over our heads here. So
you get overwhelmed. Like, each one of those things you could spend a lifetime trying to perfect and not even get close. So
So that's what we're looking forward to this weekend. So plus there's a giveaway at the end of the service. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but there is a giveaway. Everybody's going to walk away with something.
Do you know what
it is?
Don't tell.
Okay.
I had to. I'm telling you, the passage is so intense that I had to do something to sweeten the deal.
So funny.
Yeah.
So everybody's going to walk away with something good.
Yeah.
You know. There you go.
Oh,
other than that, we have men's breakfast this Saturday.
Oh yeah,
7:30. So that's always a good time.
Yep.
You got youth group stuff tonight.
Youth group stuff tonight, rocking and rolling. It's a beautiful day, so looking forward for that.
And I think women's ministry has their progressive dinner on Saturday.
I think it's Saturday.
Then Sunday morning we got Elder Joel Reinhardt with us for equipping hour, leading us in a corporate prayer time, and then worship gathering, and we'll see you all on Sunday.
Yeah.
Anything else you guys have for us today?
I don't think so.
No, it's good.
We're good.
Good.
Well,
you got to get the same shirt.
Yeah, I know. I need to like catch up with this.
Is this an Old Navy thing?
Yeah.
Can you remember?
I don't know. Maybe.
I don't remember.
Figure something out.
Yeah.
Oh, we have prayer time for equipping hour. It's coming up this Sunday.
Did
you say that?
Yeah.
Oh, you might.
I think I did say that.
You're probably just thinking
awkward.
about how like, wow, I wish I had that shirt. That's
that was all I could really think about this entire time.
Yeah.
So.
All right, guys. Well, it was good to see you. Shane, thanks for all your work with setting up cameras and stuff.
Yeah.
Very fun.
Yeah. More today.
All right. We'll see you guys.
Bye.
Bye.